Hey guys, what's up? It's Brittany here, back again with another episode of the Breakthrough Fitness Business Podcast. And today I have one of my best friends and former colleague, Corbyn May, on the podcast today to talk about all things pre-opening a studio post-pandemic.
Hey guys, before we get into the podcast, I wanted to just talk to you guys for a minute. Are you a studio owner who is looking for a true partner in your business, a partner that you don't actually have to give up equity to in your business? Maybe you're having a hard time navigating our new normal. Maybe you're struggling to find employees, time, members, and maybe even profitability. Well, I want to let you guys know I'm here to help. So I work with fitness studios one-on-one like a true partner in your business. I help you navigate bottlenecks with staffing, with systems, sales, and operations to find freedom of time and freedom of money, which is what we all want as studio owners. So if you're out there, if you're sick of cookie cutter programs that only offer short-term solutions with no guided one-on-one support, then I just want to invite you to jump on a call with me and see if we're a good fit, and we can take it from there. I only have 4 spots available. I only work with 10 clients at a time. So send me a DM on Instagram, Brittany_Welk, and let's get connected.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Brittany here. Corbyn, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Honestly, like you and I have gotten so close and connected since being colleagues together. And I'm really excited to bring you in because you are the guru when it comes to pre-opening a studio. And I feel like you've really been so connected in the space prior to the pandemic and really during the pandemic. So Corbyn, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I know we kind of talked about me introducing you, but why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them who you are, your background, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And thank you so much, Brittany, for having me on. My name is Corbyn May. I was a former regional director of OrangeTheory. I helped open 20 locations in the Oregon and Washington market. At the same time, I spent a little bit of time on Nike's world headquarters. We put a location on Nike's world headquarters, and then also helped some of our London locations. After that, I went into fitness business consulting, in which I got to know you super well there as well, Brittany. And then now I've moved on to become really a co-founder of a new pain med spa concept called BioRecovery Labs, which is beginning to kind of get underway, and hopefully by kind of the end of 2022 we'll have something under the way there. So background in fitness, consulting business, fitness businesses, and now kind of moving more into the medical regenerative medicine space, but still taking those same concepts into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so exciting because you've kind of been through the whole process. You know, you started out as a coach at OrangeTheory and you worked your way up there through OrangeTheory, and then getting into the fitness business consulting space and kind of being, you know, an expert in the industry and being able to help other studio owners. And then all of a sudden now you're going into this co-founder space of like actually being able to run and operate and be part of your own business, which is really cool. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the BioRecovery Labs. I think it's important for people to know that that's an upcoming concept that you guys are working on. And I want to give you a platform to be able to talk about that a little bit and how you feel like it's going to change, you know, the way that people see fitness for your demographic that you guys are targeting.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of shameless plug here as well. We're still kind of in the early stages, but we identified really a gap in the market in which in regenerative medicine, not covered by insurance as well. A lot of people struggle with chronic pain, arthritis, and there's this huge market and need for regenerative medicine. So we partnered up with a very successful doctor out of LA and another one out of New York. And we're going to take shockwave therapy into these spa concepts. Shockwave is very successful right now in Europe. And so now really the hope is to bring it into the United States. So a few different, we're going to open up our own locations, our standalone locations, but then we're also going to take this and start adding this into existing medical clinics. And so as you can imagine, really a lot of this is now about the sales process, right? SOPs, all on the operations side, building these checklists, and really kind of taking everything that I've learned from fitness and these, for profit, for cash, membership-based profit models, and now kind of taking this really into the medicine space there as well. So it's some exciting things. But I'm finding out, as a co-founder, every day you just got to keep chipping away.
Yep. It's always the not sexy stuff that you have to do every day. They're like, you never realize you got to do that until you're actually in it. But it's oddly satisfying to be a part of something, that's growing and that's making a difference in the world, especially in the market that you guys are targeting. It is such a niche market. And like you said, it is such an underserved population. And it's really cool that you guys have found that kind of blue ocean, you would call it. And you guys are really going to maximize on that. So I'm excited to see where you guys go with that. And I'm excited to just watch you continue to grow in that journey. So I brought you on today because you are the resident expert when it comes to pre-opening. And to be honest with you, I feel like if you came out of this pandemic doing really well, you're seeing those concepts and those studios add additional locations and kind of grow their businesses, because it was like sink or swim. You either came out of it and you were doing really well, or you came out of it and you ended up closing. And unfortunately, 50% plus of the fitness studios in the country had to close because of the pandemic. And I want to talk about the other side of the coin, the people who are succeeding or others who are finding areas like you guys are in their own markets and are wanting to open up new spaces. And I want to talk about, first off, what do you see different in that pre-open space, pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, kind of going through the pandemic, and some of the trends that you're seeing coming out of it right now?
Right. Well, typically, and before COVID, we kind of ran this 10 to 12 week pre-sale, right, in which that we go to market, you have digital advertising, and really you're trying to amass as many leads as possible and then convert those into memberships. And that would run for about 10 to 12 weeks. And your goal would be to open up really in the black. Well, of course, COVID really kind of created some hurdles, not only on just open fitness studios, but on pre-sales, right? Yeah. There was a large portion during COVID where, let's say we were to open and we were talking about a 12-week pre-sale. Well, I couldn't even see what next week looks like for a lot of the time. And eventually you're like, oh, I don't even know what next month looks like. And so it kind of opened up this objection, or these objections for a lot of our consumers, in which that they weren't as willing to sign up for that. Of course, we can talk about some of the financial constraints that COVID offered as well, right? A lot of unemployment, a lot of job loss there as well. And now as we kind of deal in 2022 with some of the rising costs and inflation there as well, right? So those were some of the things that I've kind of noticed recently, shifting trends, which have opened up these new objections for our consumers, not being able to see far enough in advance and being like, yeah, I don't even know what next week looks like as an objection, right? That's all fun. Secondly, the rising cost of business and inflation, and then job uncertainty and job loss there as well. So it kind of, we had to adjust our 10 to 12 week kind of pre-sale time frame. And so what I'm kind of noticing as more people come into pre-open right now, we're not seeing necessarily the same big numbers, right? The target was always get to 400 to 500 members as part of that pre-sale. Right now, realistically, what we're starting to see is around that 150 member mark, which is still 150 lives that we're changing and 150 people that have committed to your product and service. But I'm noticing a lot of the consumers are saying, well, I'll wait till you're open. Necessarily the $10 or $20 discount doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I think that, you're right in the objection area. It's like, and honestly, that kind of comes up, for people even opening studios with their landlords and in leases. And it's like, you as a company want to have some kind of buffer in there, because you're like, we don't even know what if we get shut down again? Like, that's always the thought in the back of your head. And I think as consumers, it's the same way. Like, what happens if I sign up for this gym and I can't go anymore? Like, what happens if I lose my job again? Like, what happens if this? So there's so much like what if going on right now, that the uncertainty has really created an interesting dynamic for people who are opening studios now, because you've got one side of the population that's like, I don't care, no masks, no vaccines, like I'm just going, I'm living my life. And then you got kind of that middle part that's like, yeah, I get it and I understand it, I want to be cautious, but I still want to live my life. Then you've got the other side, it's like, nope, I'm staying home, not going to the gym, not going anywhere, like that's what I'm doing. So you got to kind of figure out how you get to those people. And like you said, pre-pandemic, it was volume, as many people as you could fit into a gym before, busting at the seams before you open was the goal. Now it's like, when it comes to the thought process of like, can I open a gym now? The first thing that comes to your head is like, well, the cost of everything that I would have to do beforehand has gone up. And the opportunity for me to sell more memberships to meet that cost has gone down. So you have to almost risk reward, like where are you at? So I definitely agree with you on like kind of how that landscape has changed. And I do see us coming out of it now more, but I still think there's that little bit of like, ooh, I'm still a little uncertain about things. And so there is that challenge for people wanting to open studios now. So I want to talk about some trends in the industry, because you're pretty connected, doing consulting and also, you know, working on this new fitness concept, this pain concept that you guys are working on. Let's talk about some trends that we've seen, positive or negative, in the industry, you know, pre-COVID, in COVID, now going into 2022. What are you kind of noticing in the industry?
Yeah, well, I think without a doubt, there's the overall trend, and I think this is a positive trend hugely, is that we really, for the last 2 years during COVID, realized that if you're healthy, you have a good diet, right, and you live a positive life, a healthy life, that really, you know, you were kind of safe, right? I think of COVID really attacked a lot of people with commodities, obesity, right? That kind of stuff there as well. So, you know, overall, I really think that there is a positive shift in our society towards living a healthier life, living a more active life, right? And, you know, just cardiovascular health, nutrition, diet, that kind of stuff. So overall, I think that there is a huge market still for fitness, health, wellness concepts. And I think people are much more conscious of that. So that's a good thing. You know, I think initially, once we went through the pandemic, the pandemic begun, we saw the immediate rise of the Pelotons, the tonals, right? Everyone can see kind of what happened with Peloton stock price now, most recently, losing really their pandemic gains as well. And I think really that kind of shows an opportunity in the market, and you cannot necessarily replicate the in-studio experience, right? And for a lot of our consumers and our members, number one, it's a great escape, right? They come there for an escape. They come there for the feeling of working out next to people and alongside people there. And you just can't recreate the volume, the music, the energy working out. So again, I think we saw kind of that immediate, I need to work from home. And then we've seen kind of that dip as well. And of course, those guys at home are dealing with, you know, supply chain issues and also the rising cost of doing business there as well. The other thing that, you know, to kind of note for a lot of our business owners, and you kind of alluded to this as well, we talked about volume before in pre-sales. Now the shift has to be towards revenue per member. I think revenue per member is extremely important. We always have very nice pro formas, right? We have these pretty pro formas, and then we open this, and how many people really go back and look at them again?
Nobody does.
Pro forma, and you're like, all right, and now I've actually got a taste of a pre-sale there. So look, I think, you know, rather than having these sexy 300 member targets, 200 member targets as well, we really have to take a look at our revenue per member there as well. What are the cost of some of our competitor brands per month in that area? Who else is doing business? Where's the market at? What are you offering? What additional services can you offer as well, right? I just talked about that whole encompassing nutrition, supplements, wellness coaching, life coaching, right? All of these things can also be included in a membership to also add an additional value and get your revenue per member up there as well. So I think that's an overall shift as well, that we've seen less volume and more focus around revenue per member and putting that into your projections. And also consumers, we did see, because there was an element of a recession, and we kind of talked about having, you know, job insecurity and stuff like that. It did wipe out a portion of the fitness industry there as well. The people that were around that LA Fitness, Planet Fitness, but just reached in and jumped into boutique fitness because they're like, I can do 150, I can do $160 a month. Life is good, the economy is good. We kind of saw a few of those people move back, right? Or even move back, you know, into at-home gyms, that kind of stuff. So there is a smaller segment, there is a smaller market now, but I do think that that will come back eventually as the economy grows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think to your point, and this is something that I preach to the clients that I work with all the time, is like, it's not about how many members you can fit in a studio. It's about how much they're buying from you on a monthly basis, making sure that they're not just buying a membership from you every month, making sure they're buying supplements, they're getting into the challenges that you're offering. Maybe they're doing some personal training, they're buying retail, they're buying apparel, they're buying the food and drink off the shelf. You're getting that $150 to $200 a month if you can. And now when you're doing that, you can have less members, but more revenue. And I just had this conversation with somebody on Monday, because she was like, well, we have 256 members. And I was like, well, we have 270 and we make double the revenue that you do. Like that. I mean, that's the game. Now the game is not volume. The game is, can you create such an experience and a community in your studio that people will pull out their pocketbooks more often for your brand and for what you're offering, because they believe that what you're offering them is actually going to get them the results that they want. And when you could do that, you create that value per member, that revenue per member is higher. So that's a great point. And I think that's a point that a lot of people miss because they don't understand how to increase that number, right? Like, how do you increase that number? And like you said, you add nutrition programs, you add supplements, you add challenges, you add all these different ancillary things that will bring that number up. So definitely agree with you on that point, because I think that that's one thing that a lot of studios in the industry that have been 5, 6, 7 years in the industry are still missing to this day. So let's talk about this. And I think this one's going to take us a little bit longer to talk about, because I want to talk about some best practices. You know, when you're looking, like, let's just say somebody's looking at opening a new studio right now, whether it's their first location, second location, third, whatever. Let's talk about some of the best practices that you see or that you would want to give somebody if you were to tell somebody how to open a new studio, you know, in 2022.
Yeah. Well, look, I think, you know, firstly, it's about kind of having an honest conversation with yourself and just, you know, an honest conversation as to kind of where you're at and where you're going into the market. I will say, look, it's not easy. It's never really been easy. There was a portion where it was easier. You know, right now, it isn't easy. And as we said, there is a segment of the consumer market that has kind of been cut off there as well.
Yeah.
However, right, as we know, right, the increased focus on it, on health, wellness has also, you know, motivated people there as well.
Right.
So I think the first and foremost thing is to understand that, you know, we just alluded to this with the revenue per member, is your sales organization. Fitness is kind of your translation, right? It's what you sell. But if you're going in to open a pre-sale or you're going into the second location, you have to understand that you're a sales organization that is selling a fitness concept. And I think a lot of people, we just said this with looking at pro formas and stuff like that. Business, you can look at a perfect pro forma. Franchises can offer you really good projections and stuff like that as well. And they can say, look, but you also have to sell 150 memberships. That is right. That is 150 individual conversations, finding out those person's goals.
Well, it's actually more than that. It's probably like 300 individual conversations just to get 150 people to actually hand you their card. So it's like double the amount of conversations.
Right. And then also looking at the amount of leads that looks like as well, right? In order to get 150 conversions, you're right. We had to do 300 sales presentations, most likely, right? Off of 300 sales presentations, we probably needed 600, 700, 800 leads. Which if right, 500, 600 people clicked, said they were interested, and then just never engaged with us or never even picked up the phone, never even followed up there as well, right? And so, but then also, how do you get 600, 700, 800 leads? Well, you have to pay for those as well, right? Yeah. And I know we'll talk a little bit
at a $20 cost per lead right now.
Right. And
plus 20 plus.
20 plus, right, as well. So you know, you really got to take a look at some of the, you know, you got to be honest with yourself. Yes, you do front load a lot of it, right? You do want to buy those 1,000 names, really, right? The lead list, and we can talk a little bit about marketing there as well, and kind of the shift from digital advertising and more into organic lead generation sources, right? Through community referrals, right? A lot of partnerships and stuff like that. I think that's going to be huge, and of course lowers the cost of acquisition and stuff like that. So, you know, I think you got to really kind of be honest with yourself and be like, hey, look, you know, am I willing to do 300 sales presentations, get rejected by 50% of the people there as well, and then, you know, open up with around this 150 member mark? And then move into kind of like, all right, now that we're open, I now need to grow this business so that it gets me the ROI that I had intended.
Yeah. I think it's, to your point, and this is something that you and Marcia and I have had pretty lengthy conversations about in regards to like us opening a second location. It's like, you got to realize that the cost of everything is going up. So when you're doing your negotiating with your landlord, like there's got to be a lot of asks, you got to ask for more than normal because rent's higher nowadays. Even if in build out, the cost of lumber and labor and construction and the timelines for that stuff is a long time. So you got to have runway, you got to think about financing. And if you're talking like, let's just say, for example, the average, I'm just going to do some math, the average pre-opening membership right now, let's just say is 169. That's about ballpark. If you only do 150 members at that, that's only $25,000 in revenue opening. If your expenses, if you're staffing a studio with, a studio manager, like a head trainer, at least at a bare minimum to start, and maybe one salesperson and one part-time coach, you're looking at $10,000-$12,000 in payroll, plus your overhead expenses and your rent. Like you're not even breaking even at opening at 150 people at that price point. So, but to your point, you've got to have that conversation with yourself and figure out like, if I can buy 600 leads, how can I get another 500 from other areas? And I think that's a good segue into some marketing strategies that, we can look into as we open new studios. What are some things that you have seen work past, present, you potentially see working in the future?
Yeah, look, I mean, 6-7 years ago when we would put out a Facebook campaign, it was like the Wild West. You could get hundreds of
300
leads.
leads, and it was like a dollar a lead, and it was just coming like waves. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Right. So, the digital advertising was too good to us for quite a long period of time there.
Yeah.
And then, with the kind of the new iOS updates and the new privacy and things like that, that really started to increase the rising costs. And the most recent update that happened about 6 months ago really kind of put that into perspective. So, and also during the pandemic, when you are looking to cut costs and you are looking to find ways to really optimize, yes, you do have to have a digital presence no matter what. I'll never tell you not to advertise on that, but it also opened up more traditional pathways, more traditional ways of advertising. And it also took us back to the basics of organic leads. So some of the things that I've seen that have worked, direct mail pieces, right? We all still go check the post. We still go check the mail, no matter what, right? So direct mail pieces there, people are still reading, they'll still look at it. We talked a little bit about partnerships there as well, right? Identifying businesses in your area that are like-minded, and kind of have a similar angle to you, and what I mean by that is if you are a veteran, then look and seek out veteran-owned businesses, right? We've seen a big increase in female-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses as well, right? There are these pockets, these communities that are looking to help create minority-owned businesses and all things like that as well. So partnerships and kind of the community growth and the sharing of ecosystems. And then the final one is just our ability to connect with somebody and then them bring in their circle, their group of 3, 4, 5 others whom they also want to work out with. And they want to, help better themselves too through our workout. So those were kind of, look, we got to have digital, but also back to the basics of organic lead generation and finding a way to have a low cost of acquisition is huge.
Yeah. I think to your point is that, when I think about like direct mail, I think about, don't just send out a square piece of paper, like send out something unique, make it feel different, make it a different shape, like make it stand out in the mail. If you can find something that's lower cost, that's like a circle or like a jagged like triangle or something like that weird that you can like send out and make it interesting. Like don't just send a big square piece, like send something unique in the mail that somebody's gonna be like, what the heck is this? And then they're gonna pick it up and read it. I think about referrals. Like at the end of the day, every time you have somebody in that conversation and they say yes, you can give them some kind of referral credit. Like, hey, do you have 3 friends that, you would want to give me their name and their phone number that I can reach out to? And listen, if one of them signs up, we're going to give you your first month for free or something like that, like something that you can generate some referrals. But at the end of the day, you cannot rely on paid ads. Because if you think about it, let's just say on the high side, we're seeing a $30 cost per lead on the high side. And if you need 600 leads, That's $18,000 in paid marketing to acquire 600 leads. That's a lot of money. And some people don't have that ability to spend that kind of money on marketing when they open. So you've got to get real creative on how you're going to start getting leads if you can only spend half of that and get half of the leads. Or you got to get really good at selling. Like selling has got to be your jam, because if you're only selling 50% of your leads, this could be really rough. So back to your point of like, you got to really think about this. You got to really back your way into this and really be ready to put your foot to the ground and work, because this isn't 2017. Like people aren't just going to walk into your door and be like, I want to sign up today. Like you're going to actually have to work for it. So
yeah, I think, we talked a little bit about kind of the owner operator, and a lot of people moved into the, fitness was traditionally an owner operated, right? Gyms, micro gyms, boutiques, very owner operator led. And then we kind of moved into the seeing a big increase in fitness franchising and kind of the promise of ROI, and kind of hands off, allow a manager to take care of it as well. It's still a business and it's a sales organization there as well, right? And so you also got to ask yourself as an owner, do I like to go to a community events? Am I the type of person that breaks into communities? Do I already have a strong community right now? Do I have a Rolodex of a few hundred names of people, not even, influential people in your community, just people who you can tap into that want to see you succeed and want to see you grow? If you're answering no to a majority of these questions, maybe a pre-sale and a fitness business isn't quite yours, because we are so community led and community focused. And you got to care about other people, and you want to be a connector. You want to help merge ecosystems, really.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to that in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about staffing studio and pre-sale. Like, what are your recommendations in regards to staffing for pre-open? So like that 3 months or so, 12 weeks before you open a studio, and then like at opening, what are your recommendations that people should have, in place if they have the ability to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think you got to reverse engineer your pre-sale goals, right? And so let's use 150 members. We want 150 people that have signed up for a membership agreement, right? We just talked about in the fitness industry, typically you experience about 50% sales conversion. So that means about 300 sales presentations there as well, right? We talked a little bit about kind of the leads, knowing that your lead to conversion there is normally between about 20 to 30%, right? Obviously, the higher we increase referrals, the more of that conversion happens there. So let's just talk about 1,000 leads. Well, 1,000 leads don't just book themselves. They also have to have phone calls, text messages, and we got to do follow-ups there as well. The reason I'm saying reverse engineering the goals is because now you take a look at 1,000 leads and the bandwidth, not only to get them, but the bandwidth to work them, because they also require follow-ups, right? Hot leads require follow-ups each day of the first week. So how much time can one person make a phone call or make phone calls per day? How many phone calls can they make right there as well? And so typically you're looking at getting about 100 phone calls out per day. That's really the goal, the metric. And so typically once you start out, you don't have all those leads right away. You got to go get them. You got to go find them. So initially, my suggestion would be to start off with 2 people. If you're an owner operator, one of them is going to be you. If not, then you're looking for 2 solid people, maybe 1.5 to begin with, but you really want to get to about that 2.5 number as fast as possible. Within about 4 weeks of you opening, you want 2.5. So 2 full-times, 1 halfer, in which that now everyone is contributing to those phone calls, the lead growth, the lead nurture, and then pushing people to appointments. Well, then you've got to have people that do those 30-minute appointments as well, right? And so, look, I think 2.5 is a good metric, and you can handle that. But also, for anyone else, reverse engineer your goals and go, can I ask this person to make the 200 calls I need them to do today? No. Okay, we need more people.
Yep. And that makes sense. And I think to the point of like, I think about in our situation, like if and when we decide to do this whole second location thing, like I would probably be one of the people doing it, because we've never done this before. Like this is new. So for me, like, we've never been through a pre-open. So I would have to do part of it myself, because if we do it a third time, it's like I would need to be able to teach somebody the best practices and the best way to do it. And I kind of feel like with the second one, it's like I don't want to be mad at anybody else but myself if something goes wrong. So it's like, to your point, if you are an owner operator, it's like one of those people is probably going to be you. And another person, might be somebody that you've been training at the other location, or that, is close to you. But if this is your first one, it's probably you. Like, you're probably the one that's going to be doing it. So two and a half people at opening, 100 calls a day, with the leads. Now, you said something earlier about, like, when you get into fitness and how it's all about community, and you have to be really willing to, like, be in a community and be a part of that and be able to nurture it really well. I actually got an Instagram message from a manager that manages a studio that I visited a couple weeks ago. And she was like, my owner doesn't believe in business coaching, because I had actually talked to one of the coaches, and they were like, yeah, we could really use some help. And he was like, here's the owner's number. And I was like, okay, cool. So I texted him. He's like, send me an email. So I sent him an email, and he ignored me. And I was like, okay. So I sent him one more message, and I was like, hey, just making sure. Never heard from him. And I was like, listen, I'm not going to chase you around. Like, you want my help, you can have it. If you don't, don't. Well, then his manager ended up messaging me, and she manages both of their locations. And she's like, my owner doesn't really understand. Like, he just thinks this is coaching is a waste of time, and blah, blah, blah. And, he's got another business that's going on. And it's like, and it happened to be a franchise. And I'm like, this is the problem, is that franchises, unfortunately, promise ROI and promise return because they have this data metric set of thousands of locations of, like, the top ones are doing this amount. But if you've got an owner that doesn't understand fitness business, I believe that business is the same across the board. I think the foundations of business are pretty much similar, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all make money, we all have operating expenses, we all have payroll, like all of that stuff, right? But I believe, to your point, community in a fitness business and understanding how to not only bring in people for membership, but bring in staff and a team of people that are fitness minded, and you being able to understand that is the key to success. If you miss that piece of, like, understanding fitness business, it's very, very hard to be really successful in this industry, because there's a gap between business and fitness business. And I don't know if you agree with that or not, but, like,
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly believe that you have to really understand fitness business in general to really be successful. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I was so frustrated when I got that message. I was like, oh.
Well, look, your people are your product, right? And you can have very successful fitness franchises, OrangeTheory, F45, the Spengas of the world. I love kickboxing, Club Pilates. You can have really, really great names with great programming and great concepts. And you can walk into a class and have the wrong coach, the wrong instructor, the wrong manager, the wrong salesperson. And no matter how they deliver that product, the person is not correct. And at the end of the day, largely when I'm buying a consumer relationship, often said, people cancel memberships. They don't cancel relationships.
Right.
We are in the relationship business. That is what we're at. Fitness is the relationship. We coach them, but we're more than that as well, right? And it comes back to that cost per revenue or revenue per member model there as well. If you can have less members, but them paying more, and you have a closer, better relationship with them, you're also going to have more retention, right? Your attrition will be so much lower there as well, right? A lot of boutique fitness locations we talked about were, right, they offered small group personal training, right? That was the phrase, group personal training. Well, if I have 1,200 members in a location, how can I offer that personal training element of it? You have 300-400 members. It's really hard to do that, right? So look, hiring, getting it correct on there, being a community-based individual, an owner operator, and if you are going to be hands-off there as well, then you've really got to put a lot of trust in your team. But I will be honest, no one gives a shit about your business as much as you, right? And if you give, if you care less about it, right, then your team are only going to care as much about it as well there as well. And
Right.
if you're not willing to invest in development, you're not willing to invest in growth and development for your team. We also have to keep in mind, right, a lot of people don't have business skills and business knowledge. So we want to hire this manager for 40, 50 grand that has no business skills. They're a trainer or they have some sales backgrounds and some sales skills. But
Yeah.
they don't have business knowledge as well. What we're asking of them, they don't always have, or it takes them too long to get there. So those are some of the issues that I've seen in pre-sales.
Yeah. Okay. So I think to your point in regards to, okay. So I actually wanted to touch on the having good staffing, because I think that there's a point where it's, if you take, Marcy and I always believe, like, if you take care of your people will take care of your members. Like, you have to, as an owner, you have to make sure that you support your team so that your team can support your members. If your team feels not supported, it's going to be very, very hard for them to be able to support your members in the way that they need to be supported. And I think that that's what gets missed sometimes, that if you're just somebody who likes business and you have a lot of money and you're like, want to put it somewhere, then you just see money and revenue and not people. And like in fitness, you have to be able to see people. You've got to be able to know that people, like you said, relationships are the foundation of building a fitness business. It realistically is. Yes, money is part of it, and there is an opportunity for revenue and investments and all that stuff. There is, only if it's done correctly. If you come into this just looking at it as simply a vehicle for you to put some money in and hope to get a return on it, it's not going to work. It's either going to stay stagnant, plateau, or it's going to fail, because your people can only do so much without support from you. And I think even when you talk about pre-sales, because that's a conversation, is that if you are a owner who is like not comfortable doing the operational side of things, you've got to make sure that whoever's boots you put on the ground in that pre-open stage, that you support them in a way that they need to be supported, and you give them the resources and the training that they need in order to do the job really well. Otherwise, your pre-open is screwed. Like, you're just gonna be screwed from the jump. So your point about relationships is so integral, I think, in this space, and really being able to understand that concept is so important. So other than that, is there anything else that you want to like just touch on before we sign off in regards to pre-open, staffing, the industry now, just any best practices for people who are listening to this that are either maybe looking to start their own gym or kind of working their way into maybe opening a second? Like, what would you, last minute, just anything you want to add?
Sure. Yeah. Look, anyone listening to this, obviously you've listened to 30 minutes or so of us already talking as well. So you seem to be on the right direction, or maybe you know someone or your partner, or you guys are just thinking about it as well. Look, I think take the time to talk to somebody that's been in the industry and gets it, right? We've covered 30 minutes. I mean, you and I could talk for half hours. A day, right? On this as well. So getting insider and insider knowledge, trends, tips, sounding it out with people that have been there and know it. So yes, that hugely invest in the development there as well. Pay for what you don't know, to find out what you don't know, because you really only have those 10, 12 weeks in order to pre-sell, and those come very fast, and you don't want to be pushing your opening and stuff like that. So pay people who have been there or who know. And then also, keep in mind, everything that you do, you are a sales organization, but you are community led and community driving. And that should lead a lot of your decision making and a lot of your staffing, a lot of your hiring, a lot of kind of the way that you approach life there as well. Most people always say, I enjoy it. I wouldn't give back my studio. I wouldn't give it back, but I have learned a ton from it over the last year, 2 years, whatever that is there as well. So invest in people that have been there and that can help you not make the same mistakes that other people had to go through at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, it's such a pleasure chatting with you. I absolutely love just getting to connect with you. I think you and I think very similarly when it comes to this industry and just business in general. I'm really excited to see how your life progresses as a co-founder now, which is really exciting.
Sure.
So thank you so much, Corbyn, for coming on with me today. I really appreciate it. And all right, guys, that's it. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
You've just finished another episode of the Breakthrough Fitness Business Podcast. Congratulations! If you like what you heard today, please make sure you leave a review and subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow us at Brittany_Welk on Instagram. And if you're looking to break through in your business and you need help doing so, visit BrittanyWelk.com/info to book a call with Brittany today. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.